it was only at one time when there was a fire in Nambua, there were 6 families who need relation to the allegation that was made where PCN is saying that the government is giving away. Yeah, I think they should be at ease now that the government.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Honourable Minister for Local Government Housing, Industry and Trade, and also we have the CEO of Competition Consumer Commerce Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, for quite a number of months, government has been looking at various complaints, etc., that have been received in respect of the Lagilagi or Jittu Estate. And in fact, we have been doing some internal checks ourselves, and in fact some audits too, regarding what is happening both from a financial perspective and also from a development perspective, including the number of day-to-day complaints that the Minister's office has been receiving, the Minister herself has been personally receiving, the Commission has been receiving. And so we have in the past couple of weeks also been working on a number of ways as to how to resolve this matter. As you know that back in 2008, government had partnered with the PCN to solve the squatter issue on the Jittu Estate, and government started on a very ambitious project to work with PCN, work with an NGO to develop that particular estate, provide proper housing, and indeed provide proper security for all these people who are living there as squatters. And therefore, a relationship was developed. A memorandum of understanding was executed between the two parties, and government has now invested over $12 million over a period of time since then, in particular after signing of the agreement. Obviously, things have now come to a head. As we said, that we've been working on a number of options, and so the Minister is here today together with the CEO to make a number of announcements in respect of what she's going to do, and then we'll also make some announcements regarding housing in general.
I would like to say, as the Minister responsible for housing, it is of concern to my ministry that this particular project that the government partnered with PCN has not been delivered the way it should have been delivered. And because taxpayers' money is involved, it is extremely important for us to ensure that the taxpayers' money is well utilized. And in this particular case, in fact, it's $12.7 million that was given to PCN to complete the whole project. And the project included roads, electricity, plus the units that were meant to be built. A total of 143 units were supposed to be built, but unfortunately till to date only 117 units are complete. And you may have heard, or even if you have met with some of the complainants, I know they've been going to the media. It is sad to note that these complainants, they had paid large sum of money over a period of time, and they're not rich people, they're very poor people. So some of them have paid money for last 10 years, 12 years, and they're still waiting for that unit. So we are wondering where did the money go? And recently PCN had written to the ministry where they're not able to foot the bills, particularly in relation to Suva City Council. They have billed PCN, but they don't have the money to pay them. So we can see that the good intention of the government has not been realized, and it is for this reason the ministry and I as the minister have decided that we will conduct an inquiry into the affairs of PCN, and particularly this particular project, and the terms of reference is done, and we will be assigning Fijian Consumer Competition Commission to conduct this inquiry, and it fits in very well with the legislation they have. And under the Fiji Consumer Competition Commission Act, there is a provision where public inquiries can be held. So we would be asking FCCC to conduct this inquiry and particularly look at the grievances of the complainants, plus how the money was spent, because that's a lot of money that the government has given. So we want to see whether that money has been used wisely or not, and if it was used wisely, then it's another story. But if it was not used wisely, then we have to look at other mechanisms of what should be the next step, because we cannot just allow money to be plowed into a project which has not delivered the result we wanted.
So, from a government accountability perspective, we've had issues, of course, with disbursements in the past, where proper acquittals weren't given, proper accountability was not given also, so this will also form part of the wider inquiry that the FCCC will hold to. We've also had complaints, as the Minister alluded to, where some people who do not necessarily deserve to be there, we understand, have already got apartments in those places. So whether there is any form of corruption taking place, where some people are given precedence over others because they paid somebody on the side. We've heard stories that people who have, are relatively well off actually have apartments there. And the whole intention was to actually assist those people who weren't necessarily well off and to be able to get access to housing. The other issue is some of the legal ramifications. Of course, as you know, that we've entered into the partnership. It's government has given the lease over the particular land. And of course, we need to look at the relationship vis-a-vis the ownership of the apartments themselves, because government's intention obviously is to always ensure that we have strata titling. So these people actually get to own the property. So they have some form of collateral. They stop going to money lenders. They don't have to go to money lenders. So if they want to borrow money, for example, $3,000 or $5,000, they can go to the bank and say, look, I've got a strata title apartment, use that as collateral, and then be able to borrow using that as collateral, as opposed to going to a money lender because they don't have any asset base, so they don't become part of the mainstream financial system. So a number of those implications are from that, and this was government's intention, obviously, to ensure that the asset build for ordinary Fijians is actually increased. But perhaps we'll get Joel to also talk about what he thinks too.
Sure. So the FCCC has had received complaints from certain consumers with regards to refunds pertaining to their dealings with PCN. We've also had some discussion with the Ministry of Housing. We've noted that certain issues such as people were told that you are going to make payments and you will be receiving flats at the date at which they were asked to come and receive the keys. Somebody else was already occupying the flat. There is no refund mechanism that was put in place as to if the consumer, being the tenant who's made purchases or made payments, what is the mechanism, redress mechanism that the consumer has, which is a basic consumer right, that at this point in time it is not clear as to how that is being done. And most recently we've heard that there's been some claims that there are certain funds that are not available to complete the projects. Now, prima facie, if you look at the provisions, the consumer protection provisions under the FCCC, there seem to be breaches of misleading representation, which is section 77, accepting payments without being able to supply, which is section 88, and of course section 21, which empowers FCCC to look at matters affecting consumer interest. So apart from this section, the Honourable Minister also has provisions under the Act to call for an inquiry pursuant to section 48, where FCCC will be able to hold a public inquiry as to what is happening. At this point in time, FCCC is happy to look at the terms of reference, what are some of the things that we'll do from day one. Of course, under the process of natural justice, we'll allow PCN to be able to state their side of the story as well. We'll also be taking qualitative research by interviewing certain people that are part of that list, and from there, as and when updates are available, we'll advise the Honourable Minister and the media.